Well, we are eager to get started. Today, our guest is Cheryl Mayes with My Toolbox Consulting. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And we're going to be talking about SEL and workforce development.
Yes, absolutely.
So, friends, we're going to be talking for about 20-25 minutes, and feel free to chat your questions to us, and we will entertain those too in about 20 or 25 minutes. So Cheryl, tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and what brought you to this conversation about SEL and workforce development.
Sure. Okay. So I have been passionate about education and working with young people for most of my life. It's just that thing that I enjoy doing. I've learned very early on that young people are super innovative, super smart, and super engaging if you engage with them. So a little bit about my background. I'll give you the abridged version. So I am a former member of the Metro Schools Board of Education. I served as chair for 2 years. I was on the Board of Education from 2010 to 2014. During that time, I also worked for a corporation that and helping to implement their education outreach program. And so I simultaneously was a school board member, but I was also doing community outreach in education. I've been a business partner with Metro Schools for about 14 years now. And that's been amazing. But in 2017, I realized that being in corporate America was not necessarily what I was loving to do anymore. I found myself being more engaged in education, in the education space, and wanting to really engage with young people in helping them in that future workforce development. So I started, I left corporate America in 2017 and started My Toolbox Consulting, which is an education outreach consulting firm, but it's also leadership development and training. And so part of what I do with my students is I provide employability skills training, which is resume writing, interview skills, that ever famous 30-second elevator speech, just kind of getting them to the point where they have the skills that they need for future employment, career opportunities, and even college opportunities. A lot of the training comes in handy when they are going to a college interview. When they're going to an interview for a job. One of the big things that I've found that has really been one of those essential skills is social skills. Because in this world where we live right now, we are more apt to see people who are sitting at a table, and 5 people sitting at a table, 5 people are on their phones not communicating. So what I do with my young people is teach them and walk them through the process of developing those social skills that they will need when they go into their career opportunities. So I am a graduate of Tennessee State University. Go Tigers, it's homecoming week. And Lipscomb University, I'm also a Bison, so that's great too. Other than that, I'm just a pretty cool individual, I think.
I think so.
Well, thank you.
I think so.
Yeah, so
Cheryl's been a friend of mine for a few years now.
Yeah.
Like 2 or 3 years now. And we always have a lot of fun when we're together.
Yes.
So thank you for being here. Again, my name is Tamara, for those of us who just joined us, and this is Cheryl Mayes, and today we're talking about SEL and workforce development. So what role you mentioned this just a moment ago, but what role do social skills play in workforce development?
Oh, it's huge. When you think about, and I'll give you one in particular, communication is key.
Yes.
So let's tie that to curriculum, and let's tie that to SEL, and let's tie that to workforce development. So, for instance, if we have a junior or senior in high school that is not excelling in an English class, they have communication skills, whether it's written or verbal. They're likely going to have those same skills when they get into the into their careers. Now, let me tell you how SEL plays a role in that. Because if you don't have the social skills that you need, if you don't have that background and understanding how you can not only communicate effectively socially, but emotionally, that's a big piece of it. If I am a corporate executive and I say, Tamara, we're going to have this meeting with our group from Japan next week. Are you ready? And you might, as a student, be like, yeah, I don't know how to do that because usually I'm just doing, here's the example, I'm doing this, so I don't know how to have a conversation with you one-on-one.
Right.
That's an issue.
Right.
And that's what I teach my kids about. So being able to effectively communicate, not just on that career path, but even in a simple conversation among friends, it's extremely important. So SEL plays a part in every single thing that we do. So social emotional learning has to start at a place that, in my opinion, at very young.
I was just going to ask you that.
Very young.
Yes. What age?
Very young. I would say that, so here's what I've seen happen in my time is that I've seen young people, as parents, I'll say this, as parents, we tend to spend a lot of time talking to our kids, bringing them to that level from the time they're, just little ones up until the time they get through elementary school. Usually around middle school, we start to see parents pull back a bit.
Right.
Because we see our kids becoming more independent. And we don't want to tramp on their independence, so we pull back. By the time our kids get to high school, there's almost zero engagement between parents and students on a daily basis as far as that engagement in schools. So I say that social emotional learning needs to pick up again when they get to middle school, because that's when we generally tend to take our hands off. It's extremely important to do that at that time, because we've spent time in elementary school saying, Tamara, you are so great. This is going to be fantastic.
Right.
I'm going to go to all of your meetings. But then when we get to middle school, it's like, no, you're fine. And high school is like, call me if you need me.
Right. Yeah. Right. So you have an interesting perspective because you've been a school board member, you've been a business professional, you are a mother, you are a grandmother. So when do you see, what types of things would you encourage others to do, both from a family perspective and a professional perspective, in closing that loop again for middle school students per se?
So first of all, I would say, make sure that you understand, and this is from a business perspective first, make sure that you are understanding that there is no age limit to innovation, understanding, and knowledge. And I say that because we tend to believe that the younger you are, the less knowledge you have, the less innovative you happen to be. I happen to know by personal experience with a lot of the kids that I've talked to and mentored that some of them have the most ingenious ideas in middle school, in high school, and in college. But if we're not feeding into that and making sure that we're bringing that out of them, continuing to bring that out of them, then we're going to lose a lot of that potential innovation in the future. So the other thing that I would say is that we need to make sure that we are mindful that we don't have all the answers.
Right.
We don't have all the answers. And while we think as adults that we do, really not so much. But when we talk about, and again, we're talking about social emotional learning and workforce development.
Yes.
And so what we have to think about here is that if we are not at that early age conditioning or reinforcing that social and emotional learning with our kids, then it gets more difficult as they get older, because then the separation is there. The separation into the technology world increases, the connection with the social skills decreases, and so then you find. And I'm an analogy person, so I'll say this. So you'll find someone who, if you have a student who has been connected socially and emotionally throughout their career in school, then you'll probably get something like, "Hi, Tamara, I'm Cheryl. How are you today? It's great to meet you."
Yes.
As opposed to, "Hi, Tamara." Exactly. So that connection is key. That connection is extremely important, and we've got to continue to maintain it throughout their high school and middle school career.
I love what you're saying about that, because I am a parent too, and my daughter's 16. She just got her first job.
Yes.
And so we were, besides the paycheck that helps pay for her gas for her car, I've said, what is the biggest benefit of working your new job? And she says, it's helping me get along with people. Because she tends to be very introverted and shy. If you know her, she's rather extroverted, but when she gets in a public setting, she just shuts down.
Right.
But she's like, I am forced to interact with all these people that come in and out of the store. So I don't have any choice but to learn how to handle myself appropriately.
Right. And think about this. If she had not saying that she hasn't, but when you think about your daughter and every other kid her age,
yes,
if they have that social emotional learning training in school, then when they get that first job, it's a lot easier.
Absolutely.
It's a lot easier to do. And that's what I do with my kids. And so we practice that 30-second elevator speech, because I know if you can master that, you can certainly master meeting new people on the job.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I'm intrigued by that you said is has to do with the phone. And it seems like we come back to technology. Almost every time we talk about love in a big world these days, and social emotional learning. So it's not going anywhere. I mean, technology isn't going anywhere, but how do we help bridge that gap so that we don't have kids who are just immersed on screen and who cannot conduct themselves in a group or on a job, but also give them the skills that they need technology-wise? So
2 things. We need to use technology as a learning tool. Our kids already know it. And if you think about it this way, the kids that are right now in high school, they don't know anything but technology.
Right.
They don't know anything. So this is like, the roles have kind of reversed. It's us who need to catch up. So 2 things. This has always got to be a learning tool. We as adults need to learn how to use it. That's the first thing. But we also need to learn how to incorporate this in our everyday lives. That can help our kids. And I'll give you an example. There is a school in Greene County, Tennessee. The teacher, and this has been probably a couple of years ago when I had this conversation with him, but one of the things that he learned very quickly is how to incorporate the use of technology in his classroom. And so he and a teacher in France, English classes. So they would Skype or every, once a month. But what they would do is, preparing for that meeting, he would have the students pull out their phones. I'm going to give you a word in English, and I want you to, I'm going to give you a word in French, and I want you to text me what the meaning is in English. And so now you've got kids using this as a learning tool, not just as hey, I'm going to meet my friends after school, but it also provides an opportunity for that teacher to understand how important that technology is. Now, keeping that in mind, we also have to understand accessibility, and not all children have access to that technology. So when we think about how we're going to incorporate technology, not only in the classrooms, but in our personal lives, we also have to think about equitable access to that technology.
Absolutely.
And so not everyone has that. And so what do we do about that? We do a couple of different things. There are a lot of programs that are available through local government and federal government and state government that can assist with that. But if you don't know about those programs, reach out to some social services agencies that are in the city or in your local city, and to find out how you can make those connections. But we've got to make sure that we understand that we're behind the 8 ball. When I say we, I'm talking adults.
Yes.
If you are over the age of 20, you're behind. You're behind unless you were raised on technology. If you can remember a time,
listen to this,
when there was no such thing as a cell phone, you're behind already. And we need to play catch up. Yeah.
And I think it's so fascinating because this is one of the conversations I have with my 3 kids. They're 21, 16, and almost 14. And they've just, like you said, they've been raised on screens.
Yes.
Multiple screens. But we often have times where we have to say, okay, let's put aside and focus on right now. Like, I'm the person right here before you. Let's have a conversation.
Yes.
And digging into whatever topic of the day it is, but also practicing those conversational skills that'll pay off when they're in the workforce.
Yes.
Like, look somebody in the eye.
Yes. Handshakes mean everything.
Yes.
And handshaking when you're looking that person in the eye makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I think we've gotten away from, and I've seen this happen over the last probably 2 or 3 months, especially when kids were out of school for the summer and they're going to find jobs.
Yes.
I've seen young people show up for job interviews looking as though they're going to a barbecue. And while some employers don't have an issue with that, most of them will.
Yes.
And so it's going to be key to not only understand what you need to do when you're speaking to an employer, but also how to dress. But most importantly, or more importantly, how not to dress and the things not to say.
Yes.
We are in a pretty interesting space right now where the unemployment rate is super low. So employers are begging for people to come in. And a lot of times, depending on who the employer is, they will disregard what that individual is wearing or how they present themselves.
Wow.
It's not going to happen with a lot of organizations that you want to maintain a career type of mentality with. If you want to get a summer job, it might not be an issue.
Right.
But if you want to maintain a career, it will definitely be something you need to think about.
This is really good. So how do we increase the college and career readiness through relevant real world experiences? I know you've talked some about the technology application and summer jobs and those kinds of things, but tell us more about that and make that connection for us to social and emotional learning.
Okay, this is my favorite. So relevant real world experience happens when you have a true education and business partnership. You've got to have those partnerships with the business world. And let me tell you what's relevant about that. So when you think about, and I'll go back to one of the things that I did. So we talk about the use of communication.
Yes.
Let's talk about how your English class is going to create a situation for you to eventually get that job you need. So I'm an English teacher, and I want you to connect with Love in a Big World. Love in a Big World has opportunities for my students to do internships during the summer. Here's the issue. Love in a Big World has requested that I submit resumes, or my students submit resumes. And you are going to look very carefully at those resumes to see, first of all, the service, because it's a service organization.
Yes.
Community engagement is everything. You're also going to look at grammar. You're going to look at something that a lot of my young people don't understand, email addresses, because that is extremely important.
It's true.
So you're going to look at a lot of different things. But the first thing is, when you submit that resume, what does it look like? Have you ever created a resume before? Now let's talk about the social emotional, the SEL piece related to creating a resume. If I've never done it before, and I don't have someone at my house who can teach me how to do it because they've never done it before, where am I going to go? Immediately my anxiety goes up, because now I have an opportunity to work with this fantastic organization. The problem is I need a resume. I don't have anybody I can lean on for that. That's my experience. Who do I go to for that? Is the teacher going to help me? Maybe. But she's got 25 other young people who are asking for the same help. So now I'm feeling a little anxious because I don't have anybody to provide that experience for me. So here's where your business partnerships come in. If you've established those really great business partnerships, then someone like me is going to say, you know what? I'm going to come over and I'm going to teach your young people how to write a resume. We're going to go through this exercise and we're going to make sure that it's okay. And by the end of this exercise, they'll know not only how to create a resume, the important pieces to include in a resume, but they're going to feel pretty good about the resume they're going to submit. That is going to come to you. So now, initially, as a young person, I don't know, nobody in my family can tell me how to do this. But now this business partner has come in and they've been patient and they've given me particular skills and they've walked me through this process. And I go from being anxious to feeling pretty darn good that I'm going to get that interview and I'm going to get that internship in the summer. So you think about how those emotions, my babies are running the gamut of emotions when they think about, first, I'm afraid that this is not going to be good enough. Then I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to kick butt on this one.
Yes.
So that's how you connect all three phases. Eventually, what's going to happen is when they get that internship, you're going to be so impressed with them. You're going to say, you know what, when you graduate high school, I might have a job for you. So you think about how that is going to play on their emotion.
Absolutely.
They've gone from anxious to super confident.
Mm-hmm.
all because they've had those connections.
And what I hear in that is empowerment.
Extreme empowerment.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And hope.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an example. Again, I'm an analogy person, so I'll give you a true life example. Years ago, this was probably my first year as a business partner with Antioch High School. We had a young lady. This is the first year that we were going to do job shadowing. And so part of that was, if you want this opportunity, you have to submit a resume. We're going to go through mock interviews, and you're actually going to interview with individuals from the organization who you would be working with. And so all the kids were very anxious. One young lady in particular, well, let me back up. So to assist all the students, we actually went into the school and we did resume skills writing. 2 or 3 times we went into the classrooms and we said, this is how you write a resume. Here's the things that we'll be looking for. Most of the kids had never written a resume before. At the end of that exercise, they were all able to do that. One young lady in particular shared a story with us, and it's one of those that gives me goosebumps every time I talk about it, because we had helped her write her resume. And by the way, she did get one of the job shadow positions based on her resume and her interview.
That's great.
But she also helped her dad. Her dad,
Really?
yes, her dad had applied for a position, and they requested a resume. He had never written a resume before, so she helped him create his resume, and he got the job.
That's awesome.
Now, that's how you pay it back. That's how you give it back, and that's how that's the connection that you see. Now, you imagine speaking in SEL world. Imagine how she went from anxious about creating a resume, and she was totally went out of my head. But so she was the only young woman in her family who spoke English.
Oh, wow.
And so in order to help her father through that, not only did she have to understand what we were providing for her, but she also had to translate it into a different language so that he understood.
Right.
Imagine her anxiety at the beginning of that process and her confidence at the end of it.
Yes.
And so you wrap SEL into that. Think about how she felt.
Well, and as you're telling that story, I hear, with Love in a Big World, we have 24 character traits that we focus on. And I'm hearing organization, because you're organizing your story in resume format, that perseverance, because you're editing that resume over and over again, a sense of purpose, because you're going after a particular position, humility, because you're not going to boast.
Correct.
But you're not going to undersell either. You're just going to, this is who I am. Right. This is what I do. This is what I have to offer.
Right.
And ultimately it's respect and responsibility. Like, I value myself, and I'm valuing others, and I'm owning what I do and what I say. I mean, it's project-based learning.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
And project-based learning is such an incredible microcosm for practicing these character traits and these SEL skills and competencies.
Absolutely. I would agree.
So we have a few minutes left, and friends, if you want to join in and ask a question, please feel free to do so through chat. If you don't have any questions, that's okay. We're going to keep going.
Yes.
This is good.
Yes.
So tell me, I'm really intrigued about the networking piece, because I know that's a big piece for you with the students that you work with. Yes. What do you teach them about networking?
So one of the first things that I teach them is that when you walk into a room, if you have not met at least 5 people, you shouldn't be walking into that room. And you walk into that room with confidence. You walk into that room thinking everyone in that room wants to meet you, not necessarily that you want to meet them. So one of the first things that we talk about is, when I meet students for the first time, I always ask a question. Do you have a 30-second elevator speech? To which most of them reply, no.
No, what is that?
And so I explain to them what it is, and I say, okay, do you get it? And they're all, they're like, sure, I get it now. It's like, well, give me your 30-second elevator speech. To which I get the, no, I don't. So we practice that.
Yes.
So and again, I'll give you an example. I was at an event where it was a fundraiser for a local school, and I met 4 young women. We sat down and we chatted for a few minutes, and they were all freshmen and sophomores in this school. We chatted for a few minutes and they were like, we're scared to death. We have to go in there and mingle with these individuals because it's a fundraiser. And, they want us to make sure that we mingle and we're scared to death to do it. And I said, okay, give me your 30-second elevator speech. None of them had a speech. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to practice. And you're going to be me and I'm going to be you. You're going to be one of the funders and I'm going to be a student. Hi, my name is Cheryl. I go to XYZ school. I'm in the 10th grade, and I would love to have an opportunity to talk to you a little bit more about what I do. I am going to be a future doctor. That is my goal. Do you have a few minutes to chat with me? And that's in under 30 seconds.
Wow.
That's in under 30 seconds off the top of my head. And so I said, if you do that, I want you to go in that room, and I want you to do that. Just, talk about, 3 great points that you want to get across. Go in that room and do that. And then after this fundraiser, I want you to come back and talk to me and tell me what you did. So they all were like in a corner practicing. And I said, all right, go forth and prosper, my loves. After the fundraiser, I forgot that I had told them to come and find me because I was talking among some colleagues and they all came over and totally interrupted my conversation. Miss Mayes, we got to talk to you really quickly. And I was like, oh my gosh, did it go okay? They were like, it was great.
That's awesome.
So they went from being afraid and that confidence level going through the roof. It took them the first time, once they had that opportunity to have that first conversation, they felt empowered and they felt confident and they knew they could do it. And so that's a part of networking.
Yes.
You have to be able to, you don't have to be an extrovert, but you have to be willing to meet people.
Yes.
Networking is everything. And I tell my kids all the time, and this is kind of a cliche-ish, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Always have something. Always have something. Yeah.
See, okay, we're going to keep going. How can students best communicate with potential employers? So you talked about SEL and resume building and this networking piece, but how can they best begin that conversation with potential employers?
Whenever there's an opportunity that presents itself, whether it's through a career fair, whether it's through random meetings. There are a lot of times when we could be in the grocery store and you could meet someone who could potentially change your career, your life in your career development. Just hearing conversations, friends. The best way to communicate and get those connections is through friends of your parents, especially when we're talking about high school kids. So you think about this. If your mom works for an organization that has 1,000 employees, you have 1,000 potential opportunities to network right there. Your dad works for works for a company that has 30,000 employees. You've got 30,000 opportunities to connect. And think about it this way.
Yeah.
So let's say your parents or your mom or your dad or your grandmother or your uncle or your aunt, whoever's in your family, they may have a career day at their job. They may have a friends and family day. They may have some sort of event at their work. Find out if you can be invited to those events. Find out how you get engaged at those events. And again, don't dismiss any opportunity. If you walk into a room and you see me standing in a corner and hey, I know her from someplace, come over and say hi.
Yes.
I remember you from so-and-so.
Yes.
Start that conversation. One of the things that I've learned is that opportunities are not going to jump out at you if you're sitting in the side of the room or if you're sitting in a corner. You've got to go make those things happen.
Yes.
If you don't make them happen, you can't really be upset if you don't move from here to here. So.
Well, what I hear about you, this is so good. I hear self-awareness.
Yes.
Like we need to know who we are.
Absolutely.
The students need to know who they are themselves.
Absolutely.
And then they can extend themselves to practice those relationship skills.
Yes.
With
absolutely.
family and friends
Absolutely.
and potential employers. And the practice of those relationship skills really requires a greater understanding of social awareness, like what's happening around me and who's in the room and how do I approach them, and when I get there, what do I say, and reading social cues, because I know so many times when kids are here, they're not aware of just basic social cues in a conversation.
Correct.
So I love what you're doing because you're just breaking it down to really practical steps that applies to where they are now as well as in the future.
Exactly. And where they are now can get them to the future.
Absolutely.
If they practice these skills. And it's very simple. I mean, you can do something as simple as, even if you have your phone, you have a phone with a camera, hold it up and practice. Look at yourself in that camera. Do a quick video and then replay it. Take a video of your 30-second elevator speech. You'd be surprised at what you can learn about yourself just by doing something simple like that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely.
And thank you all for tuning in. We will be sharing this on Facebook and all the other social channels as well as on YouTube. So stay tuned for that. And we will also let you know shortly about the upcoming webinar in November with Dr. Daryl Adams. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.